Tonight we discuss Darshan, the divine presence, and my experience with Sathya Sai Baba, and the experience that changed my life forever as far as offering me access to a spiritual path. I'm excited to be talking about this today. This is an experience that goes back now. We're talking about, this was in 2010. Almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years as of this November. And it really was the catalyst, the beginning of explaining to me and convincing my mind that this construct that we live in is quite magical, and that us as human beings have an incredible propensity to materialize our dreams based on how we think. And that the dream state has this indelible cord that is always connected with our concept of base reality, this construct that we consider so real and so consistent that the dream state is in fact connected with our waking life. So we're going to dive in and talk about who Sathya Sai Baba is, but only on the surface, because since the very beginning, with my curiosity of wondering about Sai Baba, I have wanted to understand how the presence of this divine person would really develop a following of millions of devotees. And so, the reason is, in my mind, is that he's always with you. He's always present when you have doubts and you feel like you're speaking to an empty crowd, when you have doubts with uncertainty as to whether or not you're going to make it financially, emotionally, spiritually, romantically with someone. The reassurance just comes flooding in and lets you know, beyond any doubt in the mind, you are not alone. You are one with this divine presence in your life. And you can start to center yourself in that and find a way to come back to the essence of who you are, to your highest good. And so today I'm going to share with you my story. It's a powerful one. It's a personal one. It has tons of meaning that has unfolded over the course of the last nearly 10 years to bring me to this point where now I, without any doubt in my mind, I know that I am not alone in this universe, that there is the presence of a force that is so beyond understanding and humbling. And so I just connect with it when I feel doubts, as can you. Even if it's just connecting with light. And Sai Baba said the same thing when he was still in his physical form before he passed away. He used to say to his devotees, "Why are you spending all this money coming to India to see the presence of me when I am you, when the essence of who I am is within your heart? Why? When all of these resources could be going towards the service of your local communities." So I think about what I'm doing here in Mexico City, and I'm reminded of how he said, the greatest service that you can give in this life is service to your family. And I am reminded that I'm here for my children. And my children, whether or not I believe they know, just being here means that they have a father that has gone to the greatest lengths to be sure he is in their lives. And I'm talking about myself that I am present in my children's lives, and there's not a single person in this world that can convince me otherwise. I've made it through the gauntlet to be here for them. On November 23rd, 2010, I had the most incredible lucid dream. I was with someone at the time that I deeply loved. And this person has brought great blessings to my life, great understanding, great lessons. This is what we would hope to have as a result of our connections and our being in a relationship. I had a dream in which I was sitting on a meditation pillow. On this meditation pillow, there were two sides to a room. I knew for sure, I was with me living in Connecticut at the time, that this was not Connecticut. That this was a different place altogether. And it felt so real. It felt like it was lucid. I was not in dream state. I sat down on this meditation pillow, and the person who was a family member, and I still consider family to myself, who is an incredibly spiritual and profound intellectual, an incredible man altogether, was in the dream. And just a week before had given me a book of Sathya Sai Baba because I had inquired. I was inquisitive and wanting to know, who is this man that I'm seeing photos of all around this world of the person that I was with? And so this amazing mentor who was in my dream, he gave me a book to start reading. And that night on November 23rd, 2010, I opened the book for the first time and started reading, and I saw this photo of Sathya Sai Baba. And I went to sleep, only to find myself awakened in a lucid state, sitting on the meditation pillow with my mentor with me, and my back in absolute agony. Looking on the left-hand side, a room of females, filled with females sitting on meditation pillows. On the right-hand side, males, so segregated by sex. Females on the left, males on the right. And a hallway of all these cushions, people sitting, leading to a turn towards the right, so it was like an upside-down L shape. I am, at this point in time, complaining to my mentor. I'm saying to him, my back hurts so badly. I can't adjust. And I had been suffering for a long time with sciatica. I was assaulted at age 25 at work, of all places, and never recovered. Never quite recovered. I had sought out yoga in order to find some relief, and really the only true relief that came to me from the back pain came after this experience, and subsequently the use of Bikram yoga, hot yoga, vinyasa, and energy work to realign everything. Even with, I was told by my chiropractor a few years later that I had osteoporosis and arthritis and the spinal column of a 75-year-old man. That's what I was told. And then I had this experience and subsequently sought out holistic treatments that have led to me feeling no pain whatsoever in my back. So I'm complaining to my mentor in this lucid dream, and he looks to me and he says, just breathe. Just breathe. And so I start to breathe, and I'm mindful of my breath, mindful of the inhales and the exhales, paying attention closely to the way that I am breathing, with the hopes that this is going to bring me some relief from my back. And it brings some mild relief, but not enough for me to be convinced that it was gone. And so, once again, when the mind thinks about this pain, it starts to amplify and creep up again, at which point I can't sit any longer. And so I try to breathe again. And at this point in time, a woman walks around that corner of the upside down L shape and walks to me and she says, "We have seats up in the front that are much more comfortable. Please come with me." So I stand and I walk with her around the corner to this place where it looks like the old, or if you've ever seen the inside of a traditional Japanese home, the walls that slide. And they're there in this beautiful, nice, luxurious chair I'm offered, and I sit and I feel instant relief. Just after that, one of the doors slides open in the Japanese fashion, and out floats the presence of Sathya Sai Baba, this guru that you're looking at in this photo, literally gliding across the floor with his orange tunic, the robe, gliding. And he goes right to my mentor and has a brief private conversation, at which point in time they are occasionally looking over at me and offering a smile at times. And I'm wondering, what is this that I'm experiencing? Meanwhile, all of the devotees that are in this room are all in shock and awe of the mere presence of this divine being. And what I found very strange at the time was looking at Sathya Sai Baba's face. It was as if it was morphing between a male and female form, like it was shifting between masculine and feminine. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I asked my mentor later, and I'll tell you what he said in just a moment. So their conversation ends, and Sathya Sai Baba floats over to the other wall where he hadn't come out of, and it changes instantaneously into one of those old blackboards from school that I remember so vividly. And he has this extension in his hand which has a piece of chalk at the end, and he starts writing. And he writes the most profound messages I've ever seen, I've ever heard in my life. Here, in this moment, is the meaning of life and the understanding, the key to the universe being unlocked, being presented to me in real time, in a lucid dream. And I'm in such shock and awe still. I look around in my environment and I see everyone also in shock and so reverent and so grateful. And I'm thinking, what is this experience I'm having? How is this possible? And at that point in time, Sai Baba stops writing and he looks at me with dagger eyes and he says, "All it takes is one person to start talking. This lesson is over." And I'm thinking to myself, how does he know what I'm thinking? How does he know the dialogue that is going on in my mind? How is this possible? And then, poof, everyone in the room disappears. They disappear. All that is left is him and myself. And the blackboard disappears. And then it slides open that doorway where the blackboard was. And he walks through. And I think to myself, looking behind me, there's only one place to go from here, and that's forward. And so I step forward through the archway, through the doorway, and the door slides closed behind me. I look in my environment and I see Sai Baba next to me, and I walk over to create this triangular distance between himself, myself, and another individual at the apex of the room. And Sai Baba looks at me and he starts waving his hands as if he were to do a magic trick. And it was magic. Suddenly, in front of his hands, a mesh bag appears, and it's magically floating over to me now, in front of me, and it starts orbiting fast with tons of speed. And I am, at this point in time, afraid. I have been through this entire experience not knowing where I am, but assuming this is India, assuming that everything that's happening is real, not knowing how this could be happening in a dream. But certainly not thinking this is a dream, thinking this is the most real experience I've ever had in my life, vivid. And in my fear, I remember what my mentor told me. Just breathe. And I remembered when I had just breathed, what had happened, it led me to a place where I could sit comfortably and be at peace. And so, I took a deep breath through my nose, and then I exhaled. And when I did that, the mesh bag that was orbiting me very fast started to slow down. And so I took another breath as the mesh bag started to slow down some more. And then I took another and another subsequent breaths, and the bag finally slowed down to a complete stop, floating in front of me. Enough so I could observe inside this mesh bag were the most ornate, egg-shaped, beautiful black stones. Inside these stones, the most incredible bluish gold flame, just flickering. And I turn and look to Sai Baba, and I look back at the stones, and I hold out my hands, and the bag lands in my hands, and I can more closely observe them, this flame within these egg-shaped stones. I feel an incredible sense of gratitude, a power that I've never experienced before, as if life is being created before my eyes. Sai Baba says to me, "Throw it." So I throw the bag to the gentleman at the corner of the room between the two, Sathya Sai Baba and myself. That gentleman throws the bag back to Sai Baba, and then it comes back to me. This time it lands in my hands, and I look at the stones, and they're not obsidian jet black anymore. They've kind of taken on a grayish tint. Sai Baba says, "Throw it again." So I throw it again. It comes back to me in a full circle, this time a little less gray. And the more I threw it, the more relief I felt. The more childlike my heart became, and the more relief and lightness that fell upon me. Until finally these stones were pure white, and inside the flame everlasting. It was as if something was being burned, some part of me from the past being given up for there to be room for something new. Sai Baba asks me, before he throws the bag to me this time, "What would you like this to become?" He throws it in the air, and it's as if it's stopping in slow motion. And I say, "A World Series baseball from 1986 signed by the New York Mets." And it lands in my hand, this ball. And it's signed by all the greats that I loved. Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, Mookie Wilson. All of the greats, Ron Darling. And the list goes on, and I'm looking at all these beautiful signatures of these people that I idolized. And so, of course, naturally, Sai Baba says to me, "Throw the ball." So I throw the ball to the gentleman at the corner. Do you know who he was? I found out later. I'm going to tell you now because it came to me a long time after this experience, but it was Swami Yogananda. Swami Yogananda was on the corner, helping us play catch. He's the one who brought yoga to the east, or to the west from the east. And it was him. So he tosses the baseball to Sai Baba. Sai Baba throws it to me. And it's as if this is a real catch. I mean, we're having a real baseball catch here. We're whizzing this baseball at each other. And it's hitting our hands as if we're wearing gloves, and we're just throwing them, whizzing that ball. And how interesting that the baseball is shaped like the earth. and how interesting that the baseball has 108 red stitches. The red represents the earth. It is the roots. It's for grounding oneself. And 108 is directly tied to Sathya Sai Baba and the earth. This was my introduction to the spiritual life, in its most profound introduction I had ever received and likely will ever receive in my life. But I didn't want it to end there. I thought to myself, if Sathya Sai Baba can materialize this, then there's a possibility he can materialize something else that I can take with me. And I remembered in that moment how many years before, when I lived in Cheshire, Connecticut, we hired a group of people to come and renovate one of the bathrooms. And in the process of that happening, something very valuable of my mother's was stolen from the bathroom. It was the wedding ring of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, or my mother's mother. The ring was stolen, and this ring was of extreme value to my mom, but arguably more valuable to my mother's sister, who really wanted to be in custody of this ring. But for whatever reason, through the will, it didn't happen. The decision was made by my grandmother for it to go to my mom. My mother did not take care of it as the good custodian. Well, that's arguably not the case. It was stolen from the home. My mother had to tell her sister about this, and she did, and it created a huge argument between them, so powerful and so impacting that they didn't speak to each other for years. And I deeply missed my cousins. My aunt's kids are the closest in age to me out of all my cousins. And as a child, I developed a very close relationship with them, which is unfortunately no longer. And I would wish for it to be closer. It's all my fault. I'm about to tell you, these things are all my responsibility. I remember saying to my mom when I was 11 years old, "Mom, I miss my cousins really badly. I want to see them. Why can't I see them? Why can't I speak with them?" And my mom said, "If you want to speak with them, just call my sister." And so I picked up the phone and I did. I called her. She picked up the phone. I told her that I missed her and I missed my cousins, and I started crying. And I asked her if I could please see everyone again. And she said, Of course you can. And I love you too." And that was it. We got together about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and everything was back to the way it was. Beautiful, loving, kind. And I missed the simplicity of those days. I turn to Sai Baba in this dream and I tell Sai Baba that there was a ring stolen from my house in Cheshire, and I wanted to know if he could materialize this so I could give it back to the family. He looked at me, he smiled, and I woke up. No answer was given. The woman who changed my life that I was with at the time, I turned to her, I woke her up, it was 3:30 in the morning, and I said, "I just had a dream with Sathya Sai Baba." She turned to me and said, "You need to speak with your mentor. He's in India right now. Give him a call." So I gave him a call. He picked up the phone. I told him the story that I just told you now. And he said to me after a long pause, "You know I'm here for Sathya Sai Baba's birthday, and that there are millions of devotees here. Amongst the millions of devotees, as he advanced through his motorcade, he stopped, stepped off, and walked directly to me and stopped in front of me, at which point I kissed his feet. This was at the exact same time that you had your dream. and it was all synchronistically aligned. I said, his face kept changing between male and female. What is that all about? He said, he is the physical manifestation of Shiva and Shakti, the masculine and the feminine, the divine. You saw him. You saw this entity in its truest form. So my mentor came back from India after the celebrations, and he pulled me aside one day and said, listen, there has been an event that's happened at one of the ashrams in Connecticut, and I want to show you. It's called a Vibhuti storm. What is that? It's a holy ash. Vibhuti is a holy ash, and it had materialized throughout this home everywhere, behind picture frames, on windowsills, in glass containers that kept replenishing itself over and over again. We're talking acts of divinity. So I went to witness it for myself. And we were brought through the home to see all this miraculous ash everywhere, in piles. And he brought us downstairs, the custodian of this ashram, and gave us some of the water that was blessed with this ash, and we drank some for healing. And as I was there drinking, I looked on the wall, and I saw that there were these two mounts that had nothing on it, and all around were various pictures and quotes. So I asked the gentleman, did something used to be here? He said, yeah, it's the funniest thing. So strange. On his birthday, November 23rd, it was very strange because there were these two quotes that were sitting here on the wall. And now those quotes are no longer. I said, do you know where they are? And he said to me, yes, they're out there in the meditation room. And they're right next to his chair, where everyone dedicates their devotion to him. And I said, may I see them, please? And he said, of course you can see them. Go ahead. And now I'm looking here at this live stream as we're getting to the pinnacle of this story, and we're having buffering issues as if the mystery is not supposed to be revealed. And I find this unbelievably synchronistic. But I'm going to imagine that all is going to be well, and we're going to get through this, and that you will eventually hear this, even if it's buffering, for the sake of understanding this divine message. So I'm just going with it, hoping that you will hear this. And I'm just going to check the preview. Yep, I'm still hearing my voice, so that's a good sign. All right. So I walk out into the room where I see the chair that's dedicated to Sathya Sai Baba. And on the floor are two plaques with two quotes. The first quote says, take one step towards me, and I shall take 100 towards you. And the second, which was, shed one tear, and I shall wipe 100 from your eyes. This was the message that I needed to hear. This was the mystery from my dream that I had forgotten. The quotes that had shown me the answer to the universe had disappeared from my mind as if they were meant to be erased, as if I needed to take these steps afterward to discover the truth. And when I tell you that these magical situations have been this way since that day, I'm telling you the truth. They haven't stopped. It's been one miraculous experience after the next. And I come back to these quotes. I turn to my mentor who was there, and he saw them, and I had spiritual tears pouring from my eyes. It's when they well up and you're not sobbing and they just start to stream. And I remembered at the time this so vividly, because the Darshan day that I had for the first time was the day that my daughter Helena Sinclair Carleton passed away, or was conceived, and she later passed away. She was conceived and it's hard for me. Went through gestation to the cusp of viability and had to be delivered in emergency. And she passed away after one breath. I asked the woman who bore this child, who I send my love to her because she changed my life and helped me quite a bit. And I've only spoken highly of her and spoken in a loving way of her, knowing how much we had to endure together. I make a genuine effort to be not only reverent and at the same time cognizant of her privacy and for her eloquence, in saying I'm grateful to her. And I asked her, I said, why would this happen? Why would we have to go through such a terrible loss? And in her infinite wisdom, she turned to me and she said, your darshan you were creating space through the help of the divine so that you could endure such a terrible loss. That was the process. Because if it hadn't been cleared out, I wouldn't have made it. And I certainly wouldn't be a father now, and she wouldn't be a mother now. Fortunately, we're both parents, and we have kids that are healthy and good. And there's nothing that we would want to wish more for one another. I know this. And so I think of these things. When she said to me, if someone were more prepared to endure such a thing, they would be in my place. And that opened my aperture in life. So that now when I understand, if I think to want to project while someone is doing something to me that hurts, that I've chosen this to happen. It's a horrible thing, a hard thing to say, that any parent could choose to lose a child. It's a terrible thought. I have to say that I live in this world, in this construct, to be able to know how to endure such a thing. And if you understand my life, since having children, and how they've been held in front of me like a carrot and stick, how I've been denied access for years, how I have been told I'm going to see them and then I don't. And every time it's like experiencing a little portion of the death that I experienced in such a grand scale with my dear Helena. I have to come back to the understanding that I have chosen these things in my life in order to endure, so that I can be so strong enough to be able to serve masses of people who are going through perhaps the most challenging difficulties in this world that possibly have existed, to help them, to sincerely be present for them, and to not be hung up on my own projections, doubts, fears, my own judgments. To know that there's no greater lesson than to be a parent that's lost a child. It is the most distorted, horrible experience that I could possibly imagine having to endure. It's just not right. It's not the way that things are supposed to be. And I was prepared for this, even though I didn't know it at the time. All of this is to say, I had a dream last night. I dreamt I was walking in the streets of Mexico City, a busy highway intersection. And as I was walking, a street vendor was walking towards me, and he wanted me to buy something of his, and I didn't want to buy it. When I spoke to my dear friend Julia today, who is an amazing healer, and she probably doesn't want me to talk about how powerful she is at this process, but she asks questions to get you to get to the point to where you can identify what is really causing any sort of distortion from you being the perfect person that you are meant to be, the most divine, highest good self. She asked me questions. Why didn't you want to buy something from this man? She asked me. And I said, well, I didn't want to give him my money. And why didn't you want to give him your money? She asked. Well, he was trying to sell me something that I felt I didn't need, and I wanted him to go away. Why did you want him to go away? Because once again, I felt the pressure that I needed to do something for him when I didn't want to. And so the questions went on and on and on, getting deeper and deeper. So I passed this man in my dream and went my way, and time and space did its own little shuffle, and I came back to see him again. And this time when he came to me asking for money to sell me what he had, I interjected and I handed him a green apple, to which he accepted immediately and started eating it. And after he took his first bite, he looked at me as if he had received the most incredible payment in the world and ran as if he shouldn't have what I had given him. And in his process of running, he had dropped the thing that I had seen, which I felt I didn't need to buy. And it was a huge San Pedro cactus, which is a mescaline-based cactus. It's designed for spiritual growth. It fell to the ground, and I went to it, and he said, just keep it. And so I grabbed some cardboard, I wrapped it around the spines, and I carried it over to where I saw my old Subaru Outback that I had out of college. I opened up the trunk and I dropped it in there carefully. And then I listened in and I heard a conversation because, I remember I was with a woman. I don't remember who she was, but she was familiar. I didn't get to see her in this dream, but I heard her voice. She was speaking to the man that had dropped the San Pedro. And the man had asked her, does he know what it means when he eats this? And she responded, and I didn't listen. I just looked down at this cactus. And then he asked, does he have a daughter and a son? And so she said, yes. And then this is when another question came into me today from Julia. She said, why do you think these questions were asked? And I said, because I just need to be present for my children. I need them to feel protected. I need to feel as if I am being a good father. I need to feel as if I am making up for the time that was otherwise taken from us. And she said, then what did you do? It was a strange thing. I reached into the car trunk. I took that entire San Pedro and I shoved it down my throat and I ate it. But as it was going down my throat, I looked at it and it became scaly. I pulled it out for a second and it was a Komodo dragon. And I quickly shoved it down my throat. The Komodo dragon entirely consumed within myself. And then I woke. And I immediately started to search what the meaning of this was. handing the green apple to this man meant that I was handing the temptations that I once had to continue the same cycles in my life, I was giving them up. It also was a sign of a prosperous new beginning. And the San Pedro is a very sacred plant. I thought I was eating it. It became a Komodo dragon. Having that presence in one's dream is the sign of incredible strength. So Julie asked me, what did you think that meant? Well, I said to her, I needed to connect with my childlike self, just like I did in this Darshan with Sai Baba. I needed to connect with the part of me that loved baseball and the simplicity of life and the basic things that meant the world before everything got so complicated and so unbelievably hard. I needed to connect with that self again, and I did. I was tricked into doing it. It was a baseball that I had with this Darshan with Sai Baba. The baseball had 108 stitches and looked like the earth. It was grounding me, preparing me for something that I would have to endure. And in this moment of eating the San Pedro and it changing into the Komodo Dragon, absorbing the power of this incredible lizard-like, dragon-like being, I had unknowingly empowered myself to where I am now. When the doubts come, when Mercury Retrograde arrives, when someone no longer wants to speak to me, when someone judges me, when someone tells me I can't do it, when someone doesn't give me access to my children, when someone tells me that I don't have the ability to teach and tries to project and inject these doubts into my mind, I think two things. One, I think I am responsible for all of these experiences. For me to blame someone else for this is to simply revert back to who I was. It has no purpose other than to continue placing me in the same cycles of my old life. Two, these experiences exist in order for me to change them, transmute them through the alchemic process of service to those that are in need in the community, to those who come to me and simply need someone to listen, to tell them, I'm here for you. That transmutation is part of my purpose in being here now and shall continue until my children are grown enough to be able to say to me, we know what you did. We are grateful. Thank you. I see that day happening. I see it happening very soon. And depending on how things move here, if they expand, I'll stay in Mexico. If they don't expand, I'm leaving. I need to go to a place where my services will be received. I need to go to a place where my heart can be open and received by someone who is really going to be present in my life as my counterpart in this journey. I don't know where that will be. I imagine many scenarios with that happening here in Mexico. It all depends on how things move in the future. But I can tell you with certainty, whether it's in the United States, Mexico, Japan, Europe, anywhere, I imagine myself serving people through a loving heart, giving all the knowledge that I've had to receive through many difficult trials, and sharing the best parts of that so that people can benefit. And I know that the amount of what I have will always be equal to my ability to serve. My prayer is to have access to people. If there's anything that you can do, watching now, is to share and to believe that I can help you, so long as you simply say, I'm willing to receive in your mind, and then tell me. Tell me in the comments. Send me an email. My email is williamofthesun@gmail.com. Send me an email. Tell me that there's something that you need, and I'll help you. It doesn't matter what you've done, who you are, where you've been. You have to understand something very important with me. I'm in no place to judge you. Do you see where I've come from? I've come from a place where I would never wish any of these things to befall anyone. I only come from a place of humility now to say we all are carrying these burdens that are so hard. And that if I feel like something's happening to me, it's because I'm generating it. Because I need to face the challenge for the sake of growth. So whatever you bring to the table, just know this. I embrace you with a loving heart. And I'll do my best to be there for you in all of my humility and flaws. Thank you for listening to me. Remember, the 2 quotes are important. Take 1 step towards me and I'll take 100 towards you. Shed 1 tear, I shall wipe 100 from your eyes. This belongs to everyone. And when you're doing a meditation practice, you are literally taking steps towards people. It's moving to me. You're taking steps towards people to help them. And you don't have to think about how you're helping them or how this impacts them. Just think about light, the simplest source. Let it reach them and move on to the next. Let it overwhelm you. Never be afraid to cry. Never feel shame in crying either. It's a materialization of your emotions, and your emotions are valid, and they deserve recognition by your body from the inside out. Never be ashamed of crying. Don't let anyone stop you. Don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't. Especially if you're a man that's grown up being told you need to be tough. Get that out of your mind. You have power within you in that way to materialize and transmute your emotions into tears. That is an incredible, powerful offering to give the world, to show that you are a Renaissance man. You are part of the new men in this world, ones that are sensitive and receptive, that are looking for a place amongst the lost. When I say this, it's because there's no other man that I've met that says it. Very few have even an inkling to talk about the challenges and the difficulties they've faced because they've been told for so long that they shouldn't. Remember, more than anything else, you have a voice. All it takes is for one person to start talking. This lesson is over. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this evening's program, please do click subscribe on the bottom right. Help to grow this channel into something that can serve more and more people. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for watching and for being present this evening with us. Om Sai Ram.